Today we're going to talk about a unique speaker from the JTR lineup that doesn't really get a whole lot of publicity. Mostly reviewers like to talk about their big powerful subwoofers or their big towering towers, and I'm a little bit guilty of this myself because that kind of gives the ooh and the ah. JTR definitely has some crazy powerful subwoofers and some crazy towers. But in this case, we're going to be talking about something a lot smaller, but it still does use a 10-inch midwoofer, and that's the Noesis 110HT speaker. But on this channel, I was getting questioned on whether or not these speakers would do well using them as main speakers, so your left and right, or even using them as a 5-channel or 7-channel bass layer for your home theater. So we're going to talk about that specifically today, and what better way for me to do that other than to use them for my mains. So that's what I've been doing over the last couple of weeks. So I'm going to talk to you guys from experience on how these speakers did when using them as my main left and right speakers. I'm Barrett, this is Spec of Tech. Welcome to the channel. So what does make the 110HT unique? Well, first of all, it is using a 10-inch midwoofer. There's not too many speakers out there that are using a 10-inch midwoofer. You would think that it's going to do excellent in bass because it's using a 10-inch midwoofer. Well, that's not necessarily the case, and we're going to talk about that, but that's because there is something else that this speaker does incredibly well besides the bass factor. But the other thing that makes it unique is because they're using a 10-inch midwoofer with a 1-inch compression driver in a coaxial configuration with this speaker, which again is not very common, especially with a 10-inch midwoofer. Now, obviously, specs are something that you can find on the JTR website, and I've dropped the links down in the description below, but let's quickly cover some of the specs before we talk about the sound of the speaker and how it performed when I was using it as my main left and right speakers. The specs of this speaker are actually quite impressive. So the frequency response of this speaker is only 80 Hz to 20 kilohertz plus or minus 3 dB. And that's why I'd made the comment earlier about this 10-inch driver not providing a lot of bass, at least not a lot of low-end bass, and that's because they went a different direction with this speaker. JTR is sort of known in the home theater community as being a loud speaker and just being able to provide you good, clean, loud SPL. So to be able to do that, of course, you aren't going to be able to provide extremely low bass and extremely high SPL with a speaker this size. So of course they have to limit the low end bass to provide you that extremely loud SPL. I believe the intended purpose of this speaker is to be used as a surround speaker, but if you are intending to use it as a main speaker, you're definitely going to want to use it with a subwoofer. The sensitivity of the speaker is 95 dB with 2.83 volts at 1 meter, and the recommended amplification is 750 watts RMS. It is an 8 ohm speaker, and it measures 16 inches high by 11 inches wide and 8 inches deep, and weighs 32 pounds. It's made from 18mm 13-ply void-free Baltic birch, which is several times stronger and more expensive than MDF, so you are getting a very well-built speaker for the price. According to the website, you only have one choice of finish, and that's the matte black lacquer paint that's designed to be non-light reflective for home theaters. And then, of course, you have your binding posts on the back, but they are not bi-ampable or bi-wireable. You only have a single set of terminals on the back of the speaker. For all intents and purposes, that does cover most of the specs of this speaker. So let's talk about the build quality of the speaker before I get into the sound and how it did when I used them as my main left and right speakers. The build quality of the speaker is very well done. Like I already stated, it is made of Baltic birch. JTR really does pride themselves on using quality build materials, quality drivers, and quality crossover parts, and I don't think that they strayed from that philosophy with the speaker. And you can definitely feel that when you pick this speaker up. It does have a solid heft to it, but it just feels like a solid brick when you pick it up. It feels like something that you could drop on a concrete floor and it would still work fine. Might chip the paint, but it would still work fine and it wouldn't wreck anything in the speaker. There isn't really much else I can say when it comes to the build quality. This speaker is built very well. Like I said, it feels like a brick, and it really does show when it comes to the sound quality as well. So let's talk about the sound quality of the speaker. So of course I could have just used these speakers as my side surrounds or my rear surrounds and given you guys my opinion on these speakers as a surround speaker, but you know what, that doesn't really benefit you guys a whole lot. Yeah, of course, if you are planning on using them as a surround, I could tell you, oh, these are a great surround speaker. But I thought, all the questions I've been getting about using these as main speakers, I even had a couple gentlemen asking about if using them as a full bass layer, so a 5 or 7 channel system, how they would perform. I also did get some questions on how they would perform for music, so of course I did demo them for music as well. So I decided to be the guinea pig and use them as my front, left, and right speakers. Now I wish I had 3 of them so I could use the third one as my center channel, but I only have the 2, so I even decided to not use a center channel. So these speakers are not only providing the left and right channels, they're also being used as a phantom center, so they're providing that center channel image as well. So let me just start by saying this. If you guys are planning on getting these speakers, absolutely plan on using a subwoofer with them. I already stated in the specs that their response is only 80 Hz to 20 kilohertz, so you're definitely going to want a subwoofer to fill in 80 Hz and below. Even though these speakers, like I said, do have a 10-inch woofer, they are not designed for low bass, so you absolutely 100% will need a subwoofer with these speakers. All right, so with that out of the way, let's talk about how they performed in home theater as my left and right, and then we'll talk about how they perform with music as well. So let me start by saying that these speakers do have great dynamics. They are a very dynamic speaker. They are very sensitive, like I said, with 95 dB sensitivity in the specs. They are capable of 124 dB according to the website, and they are 8 ohm nominal, so they're not going to be very difficult to drive. So if you guys are planning on driving them with an AVR, by all means, feel free. That should power them to excessive levels that'll probably hurt your ears, but they are also capable of handling some pretty extreme power. So if you do have a powerful amplifier, these are very capable of handling that as well. So when using these for movies, for instance, when watching the Ready Player One scene, the race scene where there's a lot going on, you got vehicles driving all over, you got coins dropping and cars smashing and buildings crashing. There's just so much going on, but these speakers just keep up. They're clean, they're detailed. Like I said, they're very dynamic. There's just no sign of them struggling with all of that going on and being at loud volumes. So home theater, absolutely fantastic speaker. The high end on these speakers is just fantastic. It is clean, it's detailed, it's dynamic, it's just so clear. It does really serve movies very, very well. The high end of this speaker is more forward. It's not laid back like something like a soft dome tweeter would present to you. It is, like I said, a little bit more forward. If there is some harshness in the recording, it's going to show you that. I do find this speaker to be very true to source. It's very neutral speaker, but if there is some harshness in the recording, it's going to show you that. This driver is fully capable of showing you everything in the recording, and that unfortunately does include if it's a harsh recording, which does coincide with music as well, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But when it comes to home theater, the high end is fantastic. It does show you what's true to source, and it does show you a neutral presentation. The mid-range of this speaker is actually something that stood out to me and surprised me. I don't know why I expected it to be lacking a little bit in the mid-range. Maybe it's because the response is only 80 hertz to 20 kilohertz. I don't know. But I did kind of have it in my mind that the mid-range might be a little bit lacking. But I'm pleased and surprised to say that no, that's not the case. It has a fantastic mid-range. Vocals are very rich. And again, true to the recording, true to source, very neutral sounding. I don't find it to color the sound at all, but it does show you what's there. So if there is a nice rich mid-range, it's going to show you that. And that is something that really surprised me. Now, when it comes to the bass, we've already covered that you are definitely going to want to use a subwoofer with these speakers. They are rated down to 80 hertz, like I've already stated. So you may be expecting to get maybe some hard-hitting punch because they are a 10-inch driver, and you probably would get that in a smaller room, but I do have a larger room that's open at the back, so they absolutely need a subwoofer even more so in a space like mine because it is a larger room that's open at the back, so I don't really have those barriers for the sound or the bass to reflect. So in a smaller room, I imagine that you would get some nice strong punch from these speakers. In my space, that's not really what I experienced. There is some punch there, don't get me wrong. There was some that I could feel, but definitely would be more suited for a smaller room if that's what you're looking for. I would recommend playing around with the crossover point with these. Although they are rated down to 80 hertz, I wouldn't recommend just leaving it at 80 hertz and expecting that's the best sound you're going to get. I did play around with it a bit, and I did like crossing them over at 90 or 100 hertz more than crossing them over at 80. It just kind of fills in that low end just a little bit more, and it provides you a little bit more of a punch. It just sounded better to me. So like I said, I recommend playing around with the crossover and see what you like the most. Don't be scared to increase the crossover a little bit to see if you prefer that more so than crossing them over at 80 hertz. But the bass that you do get from these speakers is going to be clean. It's going to be precise. There's definitely not any slop. There's definitely there's definitely no rumble for sure. So I don't think they even have the opportunity to get really too sloppy because they don't go too low. And that's to reserve the ability for them to get very loud, and that's something that they definitely can do. They can get uncomfortably loud and still remain clean. So SPL is not going to be a problem even in a larger room for these speakers, but you are going to want to have a subwoofer to fill in that low end and a little bit of that punch. So for those of you asking, should you or can you use these as your main speakers or even a 5-channel or 7-channel bed layer? Absolutely. These speakers are just dynamic, they're clear, they're concise, and they even manage to maintain some separation between sound when there's a lot going on in the movie. And unique to my situation, I'm even using them as my phantom center. So they're not only providing the left and right channel, they're providing that center channel as well. So for them to be able to maintain that ability to still separate sounds to the extent that they do is just a testament to how good of a speaker they are. So of course, if you're incorporating another one as your center channel, it's only going to increase their ability to separate those sounds and just be even more clear, more concise, more dynamic. So absolutely, these are a fantastic speaker if you're trying to keep your cost down and you want to have your 7 or 5 speakers be all matching. You don't want to have, different speakers like a tower and then a horizontal center and then just some small side surrounds and rear surrounds. This would be a fantastic way to do it and still get a very cinematic, dynamic sound. So I think you'd be very happy if you did that, even in a fairly large room, because these can get very loud and remain clean and concise. So it's not even entirely room dependent. I wouldn't even say you'd have to stick with a small room, because if you're incorporating subwoofers, these get incredibly loud. And then you have the subwoofers to fill in the low end. So yeah, honestly, I think you'd be very happy using these as your home theater speakers. You'd have high quality sound while keeping the price down. So are they going to be as good as using, the larger tower speakers and center speaker from JTR? No. I mean, let's be honest and realistic. Those are a 3-way speaker with more drivers and even higher quality drivers yet. So of course, those are going to sound fuller, maybe a little bit richer. Bass, of course, is going to be better, even though some of their towers don't go incredibly low. Even still, they do go lower than these speakers. But with a subwoofer and with this speaker, you're going to be very happy. You're going to have a high quality sound, and I doubt very much that you're going to be disappointed using these as 5-channel or 7-channel, or even just your main left and right and center. So yes, they're fantastic for home theater. Yes, you can use them as your mains, but how are they for music? They actually surprised me. I thought because these speakers are a home theater speaker that their, music is going to be iffy. It's doable. It's going to sound okay. But you know what? They do actually sound quite good. Are they going to be as good as a speaker that's kind of more geared towards music? It kind of depends, actually. It depends on what you are expecting or what you're looking for from a speaker. If you're looking for something with coloration, warmth or bumped high end or something with more bass, then no, these probably aren't going to be the speaker that you're going to choose as a music speaker. So if you are looking at these speakers specifically for music, if you're looking for something that's neutral, concise, clear, clean, these can do that. The high end is, like I said, going to be a little bit more forward. If you're looking for something a little bit more laid back, you may want to give these a try still, but keep in mind that the high end is going to be a little bit more forward versus something like a soft dome tweeter that kind of smooths things out and is a little bit more laid back, or something like a warmer speaker that smooths kind of everything out and is a little bit more laid back. This is not that. They definitely are aiming for neutrality here. So if you're looking for something that's neutral and going to be true to source, these are a great speaker to use for that. But again, just like with movies, you are going to hear a harsh recording when it comes to music with these speakers as well. There is a song that I like to use to kind of help amplify that. It isn't a very good recording, so you need a very soft speaker to actually be able to listen to the song and not kind of have it shred your ears. And that is Mama Knows Best by Jessie J. I listened to it on Tidal, and again, this is not a very good recording. I don't know why they don't improve this recording, because it is kind of harsh. And it's harsh on these speakers. It definitely shows that if there's a harsh recording, these are going to show it to you. So they're not going to smooth it over. They're not going to, have it be less painful to your ears, so to speak. That's not this speaker. It's going to show you the harsh recordings. So keep that in mind if you are buying this for music. But if you're looking for something that's clear, clean, precise, neutral, it's going to be able to provide you some separation between instruments. It actually does have a pretty broad and pretty tall soundstage. It soundstages well. It images quite well. I was actually quite surprised with the imaging and the soundstage of these speakers, because again, I guess I set my expectations pretty low when it came to music, because I thought, this is a home theater speaker. Don't expect much for music. But it definitely does work, and it works well for music. So to break it down simply, these are a fantastic home theater speaker that you absolutely can use for your mains. You could also use them as a 5-speaker, 7-speaker setup, and I believe that you would be very happy with the sound. It is a very cinematic sound. It's clean, it's precise, it's I guess the best way to put it is very dynamic. I think that's kind of what gives that cinematic sound, is just a clean, concise, dynamic sound that's very true to source and neutral. And at the same time, it still does give you an above average, I would say, music experience, because it is quite detailed. It does image well, it sound stages well, and they do sound good for music, again, assuming you're using a good subwoofer as well, and you blend them well together. You're going to have a very pleasurable music experience with these speakers as well. Are they my favorite speaker for music? Well, no, obviously not. They're not geared, or they're not even made to be a music speaker, but they do a phenomenal job for both, but exceptional at home theater. So there you have it. I hope that this helped every one of you that has been asking me whether or not you can or should use these as your main speakers, or even 5 or 7 speaker bed layers. Yes, you can. I hope that I've answered most of your questions in this video, but if you have any other questions or comments about these speakers, drop them in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to get to all the comments and questions down there. Remember to enjoy your systems regardless of what you have. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.